Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live, talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynn@pghcitypaper.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
Hello, and welcome to the show. It's January 28th. It's a Tuesday, meaning my sister, Susan's joining us from, sunny California.
I guess. What temperature is my voice? Oh, it's not so bad this morning.
No, it's not so bad. Bad sounds sort of normal. I have to start, Suze, with a apology to my audience that there was no show yesterday. It wasn't anything having to do with us. Well, no, it wasn't. It was our, It was Comcast. It was Comcast. And Amy and I were both in transit on the way coming in, and we were informed that, we were down and wouldn't be up in time. So that's what happened, and unfortunately. So, so Susan, there's a lot of things. Yeah, there's a lot of things to talk about, and I mean, I am going to try to avoid the impeachment stuff today, if only because it's so dispiriting. I can't bear it. I just can't. Do you have anything you want to say? Are you less dispirited?
No, I mean, I'm not surprised. I will admit that I find it impossible to spend hours sitting in front of the defense team, and the very few minutes that I watched yesterday when Jane Laskin, is that her name, was making the argument that Giuliani was a shiny object, and they were doing what the Democrats always doing. We're always doing distracting. and then she went on and gave a long description of exactly what the Republicans and Trump do.
Distracting.
Pointed it distracting, and
right.
And claiming that their misdeeds are committed by others. And I just said,
yeah.
That's it. For me, it's just too difficult to sit there and watch these people create this alternate reality, stand there and say these lies.
Yeah, that's why I say it's dispiriting.
It's just hard. So feel free to talk about whatever you want to talk about.
I understand that people who live in authoritarian countries and despotic regimes and are used to this kind of bald-faced lying, alternative universes coming from the government. But that has not, we have been lied to before by government. There's no doubt about that. But at this level...
But it gets exposed, and then there's a big scandal.
Yeah, and the thing is, actually, let me just read this one thing. If anybody thinks that Bolton... Hello? What's happening? Okay.
I hear you. What?
Okay, I heard something weird. Okay. If anyone thinks that Bolton's testimony, even if they let him, would change the result of this, which is to say an acquittal of the president, you're living in la-la land. Because there was something that I read today that just sort of sums it up, if you'll allow me. As damaging as Bolton's account would seem, events of the last 3 years suggest it may not change the outcome. May not. Several Republican senators on Monday dismissed it as nothing new. Mr. Trump has endured so many scandals that would have brought down any other president in our history. Just weeks before moving into the White House, he agreed to pay $25 million to settle fraud claims against Trump University. Since becoming president, he repaid hush money given to Stormy Daniels, the pornographic film actress, to keep quiet about an alleged affair. Another woman has sued him for rape, and more than a dozen others have accused him of sexual misconduct. I'm not even getting started. So we think Bolton saying he said this is going to take this guy down? His son.
No, we have a president that's forbidden to have a charitable foundation and had to repay what he stole from his own.
His family foundation was forced to shut down after the courts found, quote, a shocking pattern of illegality. His son-in-law, and campaign chair met with Russians offering dirt on his rival that they said came from the Russian government. A special counsel investigation identified 10 instances when Trump might have obstructed justice. His businesses, oh my God, have benefited from foreign patrons with cause to curry favor with the president despite the Constitution's emoluments clause. This brings me to something in the Bolton book where he actually talked to Bill Barr, who I think should be impeached as well, and said he was concerned about how Trump was doing favors for Xi in China and Erdogan in Turkey. Those are two countries in which Trump has large business holdings, and that's what those favors are about. Make no mistake. So while the Republicans want everybody to get into, absolutely faint at Hunter Biden getting paid by this company, banking on his name and his father's position, which is outrageously wrong, not illegal, but wrong. Meanwhile, Trump's family continues, and Trump continues to do so much worse, and they're freaking out about Biden, the guy they're trying to protect. His malfeasance and criminal conduct.
Excuse me, Lynn, would that be a shiny object used to distract?
Oh, you mean Hunter Biden? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we have the Jody Ernst, the senator from Iowa, just flat out saying yesterday that the purpose of all of this, I wonder.
Still vote for Biden? Do you think it's working?
Yeah. She just flat out said, well, we've got our caucuses in Iowa. Let's see if people are still going to vote for Joe Biden. So it doesn't matter. This is what they are up to every second. They've got a plan. Yeah. That is different.
Power. How do we stay in power? Power. That's all it is.
And then back to Trump, who any other president would have been impeached and gone before their first year was out. There is no doubt about that. Look at all the people around this president who are now in jail or indicted. Look at it. And man, it is just a sliver of what will be the count when this administration finally is gone. You got his campaign chair, his deputy first national security advisor, his longtime political advisor, his personal lawyer, and others, and now Giuliani and a couple of his, buddies are under federal investigation. This is the most corrupt administration in our history. It makes Teapot Dome look like a joke. It makes Watergate look like a joke. It makes Nixon look like an Eagle Scout exemplar of everything that is good and honorable. So I can't look I can't look at this out. I just can't. And I fear for us. And I fear for us because if we put up Bernie Sanders, he's going to win. Not Bernie. Trump is going to win.
Oh, I know.
There's a good piece about that, by the way, in New York Magazine that is headlined. Let me get the headline. Somehow, running Sanders against Trump would be an act of insanity. It would. The only way...
I do
Susan,
not get what people see in Bernie Sanders.
well, it doesn't even matter what they see, right? It's what the calculation of how you win a national election has to be. And we're now banking on all those Republican women in the suburbs and other voters repulsed by Trump's behavior.
Vote for Bernie
And they'll be equally repulsed and terrified of Bernie Sanders. So we lose them. Let us remember that in 2018, the way the Democrats took back the House and put Nancy Pelosi back in the Speaker's position was not running lefties. It was running moderates who flipped red districts, like Connor Lamb here. That is what regained the House. Unless you are now saying, but what about Ocasio-Cortez and all and those people? They were in such blue districts. That's no flip. What they did is take out other Democrats in a primary.
Other Democrat incumbents, right.
That's not what we're trying to do in a national election. We're trying to attract people and to go to...
That's one of the...
Go ahead, Susan. I'm sorry.
Yes, I have to say that's one of the reasons that I'm beginning to settle on Amy Klobuchar. I did not.
Yeah.
She's moderate. She's smart. If the worst thing that they can find to throw at her is
she's hard to work for. Yeah, she's hard to work for. Fine.
You know something? I'll take that as people speak for an effective, stern woman in the workplace. Big deal.
And you know what? No, I absolutely agree. And I once, months and months ago, said something about do not discount Amy Klobuchar. And man, I got emails from people saying, what the are you talking about? I'm talking about winning. I'm talking about winning and getting Trump out. Have you seen the latest, the polling during the impeachment hearing? Trump's numbers are up, up, up. They're up. People are out of their minds. Okay. I wasn't going to talk about this. I can't believe it. Okay. Bob says I thought
about something else, anything else.
Okay, but here's another one that could be fraught. Bob and Braddock says I thought you were going to start your show by saying forget politics. One of sports' greatest athletes was killed. Yes. Yes. The news about Kobe Bryant and his daughter and the other people on that plane is so horrific. And he, but what was interesting...
Why they choose to go up in those conditions, I know. Don't.
But here's the thing.
I just don't get it.
I want to just say this and, let all hell break loose. When I heard about it, I was sickened. My heart sank. But the first thing I thought when I saw that there was this unbelievable outpouring of love and affection for him, I mean, it's huge.
What about that poor woman?
Yeah, I thought, wait a minute. Wasn't Kobe Bryant the guy who was accused of rape of a hotel worker, and it never got to court? But it was all hazy, and since then I've looked back at what in fact happened, And if that happened today, he'd be toast.
Yeah.
So, and then some Washington Post reporter, a woman, tweeted it out that same day. Hey, I'm sorry about this,
Right.
but can we at least keep the record straight about this act? And
she's on paid leave.
She has been sort of silenced by the Post. Even as, and see, here's where we're so either or, we're so black or white. It is quite possible that Kobe Bryant, in his 20s, as a already multi-millionaire huge star, one of the best players in the NBA, could have done what he did. It was 2003?
Yeah.
Because back in 2003, that's what people did. And nobody said anything about it.
Right, especially rich men. They took what they wanted.
And women, as happened to this woman, if you go back and look at the coverage of this thing, she was ripped apart. And ended up refusing to test it, would not go to court because she was ripped apart. He apologized. He essentially sort of admitted, I thought it was consensual. Okay, you have that in his young life. In the almost 20 years since, he has led an exemplary life by all accounts. He became a father, and he was a wonderful father. His wife, who almost left him, twice, by the way, he reconciled. He kept his marriage together. He did good works. He branched out. He showed that he was going to be. So why is it that we can't?
Why can't we tell the whole story?
That is a man. That is a good man who did a terrible thing. And if he'd done that terrible thing today, we would not be lauding him at all, because today somebody does a terrible thing and you refuse to acknowledge anything in their lives that might be okay. We have come to this point where, again, people are complicated. People are complex. Reality is complex. And Kobe Bryant does not have to be a hero or the baddest man in the world. He can be both.
Right. And the lesson therein lies, Lynn, that with this either-or culture, we would have, and we are, as it turns out, deprived, but not because of that. We would have deprived ourselves of what was going to be a really good second act
in this man's life. That's right.
Who was going to do a lot of good.
That is right.
So that the positives of the Me Too, that women are empowered to speak out, perhaps.
But the cancel culture and the takedown culture.
Cancel culture, as a result, is wrong, and people are complicated, and sometimes it's less complicated. Jeffrey Epstein ain't that all that.
No, that ain't complicated.
Harvey Weinstein ain't that all uncomplicated.
Those are serial offenders, right?
Even Bill Cosby, it ain't all that uncomplicated.
I agree.
Just gets harder as you love them more, as their image, was harder. But serial sexual assaulters are one thing. Some guy who's been handed the world on a silver platter and thinks that everything therefore is his for the taking, makes the mistake and learns his lesson, is a different human being.
Exactly right. So I don't know why we can't, I can't. Our culture is just gone. We've got a caller. Let's let someone else in here. Hello, caller.
Morning. Hey, I just want to let you know that I did take all my liquor and wine in beer bottles to Construction Junction this weekend, and I tried not to break them as I was dumping them in. So I'm following the rules.
Wait, but I mean, seriously, so they don't take, the regular recycling doesn't take wine bottle anymore?
No, I mean, I talked to Waste Management in our area, and it's like they will not take glass. And people still do it because people just aren't kept up. It's just the rules changed. And I heard the big problem with the glass is because China didn't want to take our glass anymore.
Yeah, well,
And there's nobody to
it
do
turns out the big problem with almost anything is now China. China or Trump.
Well,
Those are the two things that answer almost all questions of what the hell's going on.
Well, recycling's not what I wanted to talk about. I just wanted to mention it because I did follow the rules. I wanted to talk about what the current idiot in office. But then the Kobe thing kind of got me going. It's like, isn't that something? Can people forgive him? I don't know if I have, but it looks like he turned it around. And some people just might have crossed him off forever. Would you agree with that?
I don't think people crossed him. Look at the outpouring. He is a national hero. 3 of our presidents, Barack Obama, Bill, everybody, like, he's lauded. He is a national hero. And this is an uncomfortable little incident, apparently. But why are we incapable of talking about the totality of a human life and still not finding him heroic in some way? I feel for the woman. By the way, I'm looking at something that was in today's Washington Post about it, and said that the woman in question, she was 19 years old, that she presented evidence of lacerations too many to count near her vagina. His defenders went after her saying she was promiscuous and she was a depressive and she just wanted to, be with a legend. That's where the media went true, I remember. And the fact is he raped her. It went too far. And there are very few women around who won't say that they found themselves in their lives in the same position. I mean, women of a certain age, okay? Men used to just take what they wanted. It wasn't considered rape. And we didn't even define it as rape.
What you just described about apparently what was, how she, was cut and her story, is why I always would put him at arm's length. However, I think one of the things that was probably, that I see as a positive, is that he had daughters. And it looked like he's done a lot, especially with the WNBA.
Yeah, he's done a lot of good work. He's grown. He is, by all accounts. So can we hold two thoughts in our head at the same time? People are not icons. They're not all evil. They're not all great. And we know that just by knowing ourselves. I can't take much of this anymore. I really can't. Hey, Roger, I'm going to move on from all of this. It's too depressing.
Okay, because I want to talk about Trump, but I don't want to depress you.
No, don't talk about him. Please.
Okay.
Thank you. Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Okay, no glass.
Well, he was saying we were talking about single-use plastics and how Pittsburgh's not taking glass. I guess I misunderstood the whole thing, but he said, he emailed something that made people laugh, something about how outside his house in the last 3 years, he's got blue bags just filled with wine and beer bottles because it's the only ways he's handling the reality right now. Okay, so let's just leave this. Molly, what's her name? Molly Roberts. If you want to see a well-written piece about this, I'll just read her last few sentences. Kobe Bryant was singular. and singularly special to those who adored him. But the test he sets is universal. How do we treat the bequests of big men accused of doing horrible things? Is it possible to make recompense on your own terms when a judge has not ordered it, just by living well as a husband, father, or simply a person? Those questions are difficult to answer, but the worst thing we can do is allow ourselves not to ask them at all. That's Molly, whatever her name is, in the...
Well, it comes down to what is our justice system supposed to be about? How do we view our prisons? Are they punishment, or are they places where we would hope that people would be rehabilitated to go back out and be good citizens? In which case, if it is the latter, then as a country and as a policy, we hold a truth that people can learn and change, and as a society, we expect them to.
Exactly.
But the corollary of that is that you then have to allow people to do so.
Right. You can't exile them forever and refuse to allow them, except with the exception, as you said.
We know in our lives more than one person who would have been thrown out in the trash, but instead came back and have lived exemplary lives, really. Kobe Bryant was going to do it. We know someone we know is married to a man that committed a murder, served a life sentence, got paroled, and has lived an exemplary life for 20 years since.
Right. We know a man who murdered and spent most of his, from the age of 19 to well into his 60s. He spent in prison. And he finally got out. And man, an exemplary life. So how do you, the act of a teenager in a drug deal gone wrong, right?
Right.
Destroyed his life. A lot of people never would have come back from that.
Yeah, he thought he was going to be a doctor, this guy.
He's very bright. Clearly. Anyway, people are complex. All right, so this is really upsetting. New York Times today.
Boy.
To find better health. No, listen. To find better health, look on the bright side. Well, tell us where the bright side is and we'll look.
But you see, that's that's more chemical than that article admits. And I will hold our mother up as a prime example.
Yeah, exactly. All I ever think of is Mom.
She lives to be 97 and is as healthy as she is because she is chemically incapable of being unhappy. She's of late losing a little bit of that, but for most of her life, and I understand this because in large amount, I have that as well. Not quite as much as she does, but I have it as well. And throughout my life, I found it damned inconvenient. Like when you want to hold a man. And you just can't. You just end up getting chirpy again. You're going, no, I'm still angry. No, you had Trilla. That is just
that serves you well.
Brain chem.
Yeah, that serves you well. But that's because you have enough serotonin or something. You've got copious supplies.
Yeah. It's not because I opt to be happy. No. In fact, I'm frequently fighting it off.
But, so what the article is about, all the studies show that optimistic people are healthier, they live longer, people like our mom and that kind of thing. But, and it addresses that. So if you are not that, like me, there are ways where you can just sort of catch yourself, when you're being totally negative and try to change how you're looking at things.
That's you have to use positive affirmations.
Yeah,
in much the way that you pretend to laugh and you make the laugh chemical. If supposedly thinking about what good things helps.
Well, there's a test at the end of this article. And it says, to assess your level of optimism, consider how strongly you agree with each of these statements, okay? In uncertain times, I usually expect the best. Susan, would you agree with that?
I used to.
Donald Trump is... You know what? I wanted to say what this article made me think of. I have said he's killing us. He's killing me. He's killing us because he is taking.
I really did.
Yeah. Okay.
Well,
So
let me just say one thing. I will tell you, because I just texted this to someone the other day, that I do, as a philosophy of life, always choose the upside. Bet on the upside. There's plenty of time to mourn and be unhappy when you find yourself at the downside. But if you live as if it's all going to be okay, then you end up living your life instead of sitting down, trembling in fear.
Right.
So yeah, I do, as a conscious choice, choose the upside.
Right, and it's known. Medical studies show that if you do that, you're going to be a happier, more productive, and healthier person. Okay, another question, because I would never have. In uncertain times, I usually expect the best. No, I would answer that. Here's another question. I'm always optimistic about my future. As an older person, you think, what's my future? I'm going to drop dead. But no, I'm overall, I expect more.
No, we live in times where these questions don't work.
Okay, overall, I expect more good things to happen.
Yes, you're an idiot.
Yeah. So, we're living in a time where optimists, people who think everything's going to be fine and dandy, are delusional. I mean, we've been looking at the last survivors of Auschwitz.
Optimist says we may still have time to fix this if we will just work together.
That is right. Okay.
That's the best an optimist can do right now.
Okay, but then they say, here are the questions to determine your degree of pessimism. And I don't come off as a pessimist when I look at these questions they ask. Here's one. I hardly ever expect things to go my way. That I absolutely would say no. I always think things are going to go my way. Not in my life, not in the broader, right? I rarely count on good things happening to me.
But that speaks to your sense of control over your own life. So
here's one. If something can go wrong for me, it will. Now, that is really someone with such a miserable, depressed, dark, and I am a depressed person, but not like that.
That's whiny depressed. That's low. That's for me.
That's right.
That's unattractive depressed. You have to get into melodramatic depression. That's far worthier.
So I finally, I go to the dog park with my dog, and I have a dog who thinks that a toy is something that you eat. And so his toy box, a little basket, I stick all the stuff, is just nothing but shreds of things. And he loves his little shreds. He comes, happily, takes a shred and comes running over. So at the dog park, people had this ball, and the person who had it said, this is the first thing I ever found that my dog cannot destroy. And it comes with a guarantee. Now, it's a little ball, but it costs $15 because you cannot destroy it. And their dog is a pit bull, has the same kind of, jaw and stuff. So I went and got one, $15. They told me, here's the guarantee. You can bring it back if your dog destroys it within 45 days.
How long did it take, Blue?
I am looking at
Tell
this.
me about my nephew dog. I want to be proud.
Okay. So we had the ball for a day and a half, and then the ball went missing. I couldn't find it anywhere. I finally found it behind the furnace. I don't know how the hell it got there yesterday. So I retrieved it and gave it back to a delighted dog. And this is what he did to it. I'm holding up a bag, Susan, of I took it before it all became pieces. So I'm going back.
Is it within the 45 days?
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, easily. So,
Yeah.
unbelievable. It's sad because, I mean, he likes to play so much, but you can't have a toy. Okay.
Well, let him play with his shreds. He's happy.
Yeah, no, his shreds. The interesting thing, well, the shreds have to be, like a, a toy with stuffing and stuff. And of course, the stuffing, I end up with mounds of white stuff all over.
Yeah, I know a lot of people that buy stuffed toys, open up the seams, take the stuffing out, and give them the skin.
Okay, but so then he starts on the skin. So he eats the skin. What's interesting is the shreds, almost all the shreds, are all that's left of whatever animal the toy was, are the eyes. So the shreds are all eyes. Now, they're just part of it's not like they're eyeballs. I mean, but they're pictures of, there's eyes. And I don't know what it is about him that he won't eat the thing's eyes. So the shreds are almost all eyes, although one is the 2 feet of a character. I don't know, but yeah, eyes. So back, God, I got to tell you, watching dogs play and just watching dogs has, in this Trump era, been a godsend for me. Because they make you laugh. They remind you of joy. I saw a great bumper sticker the other day, and I'm sure many of you have seen it. I just hadn't ever. And it said, "Be the person your dog thinks you are." Isn't that right? Because they just think you're the best. You're wonderful. Okay. So, do people know what I learned a long time ago when our brother went to some special science thing when he was in high school at the University of Wisconsin? He went down for a summer or something, and he studied honeybees. I don't know if you remember that, Susan. And
I remember he once. I don't remember he studied honeybees.
It was honeybees.
Yes.
And he came back so excited. I remember him telling me about honeybees and how they do these I remember him doing dances, how they communicate, how they this, that. But the one thing he told me which just freaked me out and put me off honey until just recently. I sort of said, oh, come on now. Honey, he said, you know what honey is? It's bee vomit.
Yeah, what'd you think it was?
Well, what do you mean, what'd you think it was? You don't want people say, oh, honey. Hey,
well,
would you like some bee vomit in your...
Yeah,
I know. You want some bee vomit in your tea?
It's either going to be vomit or poop. It's going to come out of one end or the other. So, I mean, it's processed it's pollen and
well, here's what it is.
Nectar processed in their body.
It's nectar.
And put back into the hive.
Yeah, it's nectar that they suck up when their job is to go out and get this stuff. And then they come back to the hive and they puke it into their little honeycombs. Now, there was a story in the science section of the New York Times today about how the bees obviously would go for the sweetest nectars, right? Yeah, bees like sugar too. So the highest concentration of sugar. The problem is, the more sugar there is in any plant's nectar, the more viscous it is. And so it takes longer for the bee to suck it up, and takes longer for the bee to puke it out.
To throw it up. Yeah.
And so they actually, in this article, they quote a researcher saying this. So when vomiting more dilute solutions, a bee would, quote, just put her head in and go, rah, and that was it. Rah is spelled HRGT. I don't know. But when trying to expel nectar with higher concentrations of sugar, the bee would sit there going, rah, 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 rah. It looked like she was...
She had the dry heat.
Right. So it shows that bees actually learn then, I know that's really good, but man, there's the downside of puking it up later. Can't do it.
Right.
So they go for
Too much sugar is a bad thing, right?
So anyway, I wanted to share that with you because it reminded me. Oh, here it is.
Well, no,
so they figured out that
you have a theme, Lynn, today. Your theme is that that people like bees can learn through experience. Go ahead.
That's right. So bees figure out that the thicker the nectar, the nicer it tastes. But the longer it takes for the bee to lap up and then to regurgitate, which cuts into the energy that they gain by the extra sugar provided in the thicker nectar. So overall, the smartest thing to do in every way is not go for the thickest nectar. And they figure that out. Yeah, they learn, like Kobe Bryant. Did you see?
Didn't I wrap that up nicely?
Yes, thank you very much, Susan. Oh, my.
It's a bee theme.
Yeah. So, did you listen to the Pompeo interview and then read about the NPR woman and what happened? Did you know about that?
I didn't listen to it. I did read about what happened.
Okay. So, man,
and continues to happen.
Yes, but you should listen to this woman's interview with him because it is a master class in journalism interviewing. She had her facts absolutely straight. She held his feet to the fire. He would try to, like, zzz, and she would say, but this, but that, but this. And he grows, clearly increasingly aggravated. And angry. And when it ends, then he calls her into his office and apparently berated her for like 10 minutes, screaming, fuck this, fuck, and trying to embarrass her with the map, saying, yeah, you maybe pick Ukraine out from, on this map of unmarked.
Yeah, he orders a map. He orders a map unmarked to be brought in.
Right. He's probably done that to other people. And she, right away says, here, Ukraine is there. For God's sake, it's what her specialty is. He has since suggested that she pointed to Bangladesh. Did you see that?
No.
He put out something, and I don't have it here, where he says, he suggests, always a little wiggle room, he suggests that she pointed to Bangladesh. Now, I don't know if I'd get Ukraine right on an unmarked map, but I'd be in the neighborhood. Right? There is no way that I would pick Bangladesh, which is in another continent. And this woman not. So these Pompeo, there's another guy who needs to be impeached. And now they absolutely lied about what she had said. Who are you going to believe, Pompeo or this NPR reporter?
Or NPR, but everybody is coming to her,
So
and
he's,
and so she's banned, and then I think they banned somebody else.
They banned They banned the NPR reporter who was set to be part of the press following him off to Europe. They refused to. So they're this is how autocratic nations work. They give press passes to known white nationalists.
Just think fans.
Yeah, white nationalists, anti-Semites, people who there's evidence, broadcast this, said that, printed this, but they won't to people who know their stuff, who hold their feet to the fire, who tell the truth. Did you see that Franklin Graham is persona non grata in Britain? Franklin Graham. Yeah. That's nice. He was supposed to head over. Yeah, the big Trump fan was going to start a tour, probably an evangelistic tour in June, but venue started canceling on him or refused to negotiate. And what really was driving it is his totally anti-LBGT extremism. And so finally, I guess the UK just said, we're not giving him a visa or something.
Right. Which is very interesting if the history as told by the series The Crown is correct.
Yeah.
Elizabeth herself thought extremely highly of his grandfather.
Not his grandfather, his father.
His father.
Billy Graham.
Yeah.
Queen Elizabeth? Well, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Billy Graham was...
They got it.
Well, see, Billy Graham is one of those people.
True, because they wouldn't manufacture that kind of thing.
Yeah, Billy Graham is one of those people that'll, the laudatory stuff on his death. And all I could think of him is him when the Nixon tapes came out and all the stuff that went on in Nixon's White House. There was a conversation between Billy Graham and Nixon that was... They were both in agreement. I was an anti-Semitic, totally anti-Semitic.
Right.
Talking about Jews. And I thought, there. People.
All you need to know.
Yeah, that's all I need
Talking
to know.
about the cancel culture. But certain things are cancelable.
Well, for me, that's cancelable.
That's right, and for me. Yeah.
I happen, I watch Turner Classic Movies all the time because it's so, I don't know, it's often fun and mindless and easy, and it's of a different time because I find these times so difficult. But last night, Turner Classic Movies had Shoah on. Has anyone's that? I saw that.
Oh my God!
I think it's 6
hours.
Yeah.
It's 6 hours long.
Yeah, I don't know if they played it all. I guess they did. I just I turned on Turner Classic Movies to come down, and there was
the 75th anniversary of
that's right
of the
liberation of Auschwitz. Yeah. So there is there's a 6 hour long movie in which survivors are interviewed. I watched for about 25 minutes an interview with just one woman, and it's And I said to myself, you have got to turn this off. You are not going to be able to sleep. But she was a survivor because I'm assuming, first of all, she was nice looking. Her entire family, immediately wiped out. And she could sew, so she told the story, and she still had some of these dolls or something. I don't know. She told the story of when transports would come in with children, how they would literally, she said she heard noises one day, and she thought, what is that? And she was able to sort of look out a little window. And she thought she saw these soldiers throwing geese. She said it looked like they were throwing geese geese were making this horrible noise and throwing them into this pit. And she realized they were doing that to children. Live children who were screaming as they were babies, children. And then they bring her the dolls that some of those kids were carrying, the only thing they had on the transport, a doll. The Nazis took all the dolls and brought them to her, in this case, and she was to refurbish them and give them beautiful clothes. She said some of the dolls that were like guys, I put on SS uniforms on them, and they would give them to their children. That was just one little story. It went on and on and on. The level of unbelievable, unimaginable cruelty. But you know where it starts? It starts with having no problem sticking little children in cages.
In cages. Or ripping them from the arms of their parents in the first place.
And calling their parents murderers and rapists and vermin and suggesting they're dirty. This is how you begin to dehumanize people so that later you can take their babies and dash their heads against the wall, throw them into flames. But first, take their toys so that you can give them to your children. Do you think we, Americans, are any better than the Germans that did that? Huh? We're all people. We're all people. And we are seeing now that America has a whole ton of people who are very, very willing to buy into these lies and dehumanization of others that can end in mass murder.
And it's why it's so important that Shoah was made and that it was shown and that it continues to be shown, because we'll have very soon
there'll be no survivors.
There will be no witnesses. Yeah. And people that want to deny it and pretend like that didn't happen. It will be easier.
Well, you know what, though, Susan?
For that we have evidence.
Yeah, but you see, the evidence is discounted, and polls show that an extraordinary number of Americans don't know what Auschwitz was. If they do know, they have no real sense of what happened there. The ignorance is incredible. Yeah, and once the last survivor goes, and they're getting there, I don't know.
Yeah.
And also all this, through all these commemorations and things were going on in Israel, and heads of state were speaking, blah 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 blah. followed some of that more than probably most people. But it is amazing how many foreign leaders were there all over the world and referencing the growing nationalism and anti-Semitism that is just growing exponentially now. And when they start saying we have this that's happened here and this that's happened here, they all say Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh. Yep.
It's one of the first things they say, Pittsburgh. So the sense that it can't happen here, it did happen here, Pittsburgh.
Well, I'm so glad that you didn't want to talk about Trump today because it would be depressing.
Okay, well, on that note, we might as well just keep it going, right? I did bring Blue's toy in. I thought that would be at least some relief.
Yes, a visual of murder and mayhem.
But joyous murder and mayhem.
Joyous, yes, with a tail wagging.
There was a piece, I think it was in the Sunday Times, and it recounts how in the last century, when you used to talk about the future was something that you sort of were amazed at the possibilities of what it would look like, right? That's when we used to look at the future, so you got... Right.
What's next? What's going to happen next? Because we had just landed on the moon, so what's going to happen next?
Yeah. And we don't have that anymore. And this piece says this: the psychic atmosphere of this bleak period is pessimism. We're back. Pessimism. It's everywhere, in opinion polls, in rising suicide rates, falling birth rates, in the downwardly mobile trajectory of millennials. It's political and it's cultural. At some point in the last few years, a feeling has set in that the future is being foreclosed. And this is shared by the right and the left for different reasons. For people on the right, it's sparked by the horror of changing demographics and gender roles. For those on the left, a primary source of foreboding is climate change, but also this increasing rise of essentially proto-fascism. The idea that technology will be wondrous is questioned now because we're seeing the darker sides of it. Anyway, just to add to the frivolity today.
But can I just say, how naive are we that any tool that can be used for good, it could always be used for evil?
Yeah. And will be. That's what people...
And will be.
And will be.
How naive are we?
So when scientists are also googly-eyed, yes, and this is going to be able to do this, that, and the other thing, and you want to say to them, yes, now you can fix babies in utero and do all this stuff, and don't you realize that eventually you're just going to create babies that are worker bees? That's what you're going to do. Or you don't even have to do that because you're going to have robots. You might not even need any babies anymore. No, the view now is dystopian. And so the headline on this piece, and I'm sure a lot of you saw it who look at the Sunday Times, says it all. Darkness, where the future should be. Darkness, where the future should be. God. Okay, so now, how many of you are optimists? Let's raise your hands. Hey, is our optimistic mom?
Fine
Is she able? What is she able to watch?
She's glued to the television, and she's miserable.
Oh, she is. Even our optimistic mom is getting sick, huh?
Yeah, yeah. But then she, tra-las away. So I just sort of forbid her to watch it. I just turn it off. Do something else, Mom.
Yeah. Well, Suze, I thank you for joining me.
Yeah, we've moaned our way through another hour.
Yeah, we did. Well, we had a laugh or two.
Slept through it. Yeah.
And Ernie slept through it. All right, Suze. Thank you.
Okay.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye. And you guys, I'll be back tomorrow. Ryan Dito will join me for the last half hour. On Thursday, we have a guest coming in that will, I hope, preclude some of this depressing talk, but I can't make any promises anymore. Okay? Anyway, thanks. Bye.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.